Our first national championship of the season, and I'm not going to lie to you, these results are pretty straightforward for the meta. Make sure you guys smash some crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more content. Wow, this is a very interesting story to tell for this regional or for this national. We're heading on into national season here, and that means you're going to have regionals on the U.S. side, and you're going to have a lot of nationals on the European side of things. I believe you're also probably going to have some nationals down in SA as well. So there's a lot to take in here. But for this event, we had two Tempest dragons as your fierce challengers to the meta. Now, I'm not surprised to see that Senpai, it's kind of the ignorant turbo express deck out here. You know, you look at this deck and you're like, oh, well, you know, how can we win an event? Poke, 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 synchro, poke, poke, synchro, poke, poke, poke. That's all it is to it. So I'm not surprised to see this, you know, placing and winning the event. Now, we also had, the rest of this shouldn't surprise anybody, except for one of these decks. You had one standard Snake Eyes deck, so interestingly enough in here, you know, in terms of your Snake Eyes, poor Fire Kings. Maybe someday you'll get the chance to come back. We also had a Voiceless voice, pretty standard stuff. Ubel, branded, and then your interesting challengers here. We actually had a Flu player. Now, I'm not disappointed to see that Flu is performing. Actually, quite the opposite. I'm actually happy to see that Flu is kind of coming into the arena as a challenger out here and actually stepping on the toes of those duelists and still showing people that, oh, well, you know, hey, being able to deploy the bird. Yeah, the bird is the word. And of course, I think the most interesting thing out of this, besides Tempest Dragon being the winner of this event, was we had a Vanquish Soul deck. Not just placed top 8, but it got second place out of this event. Well, that's kind of interesting. Maybe that means we should possibly revisit Vanquish Soul, and there will always be a rogue deck out here that'll perform and do well. That's just how Yu-Gi-Oh works as a whole. So let's pass on over to those deck lists. Winning our event was Tempest Dragon Espresso here. Yeah, I'm not all that surprised about this. The cool thing about this list, though, is we're actually playing a Called by the Grave in the deck, and we're also focusing on actually playing the cross-out designators in here. That's what I like to see. Crossing out those pesky little cards so you don't have to really deal with anything from your opponent. We do see the Vorp Gate in here actually doing its thing. The Meteor Burst clean up anything really Ubel related. And we are doing the Hida and the Striker Dragon so you can blink on out into the SP Little Knight if need be. I honestly think that's one of the cuter little things you can do. We're also focusing on no nibs at all in this list actually, which is kind of crazy, but you know, they were able to clean up pretty much everything that they needed to in their meta. So I'm not surprised about that. Also, you see the rivalry in the main deck. Okay, outside of that though, these Tempest lists are going to look pretty normal, honestly. And also the fact that this was 11-0, like, whew, okay. Second place is our Vanquish Soul list, actually sporting off 2 parallel Exceeds in here. So you can actually get to the Battling Box, or if need be, to toggle up. That's actually kind of cool. What else can we do with this? We're playing double Fenrir, so you do have some of the little searchability / field control. You do play the one Durandal to toggle for your little fire search if need be. We're playing 2 copies of the Geolong, 1 copy of the Trap card. That's also pretty straightforward. Looking at the rest of this though, you are focusing on double talents in the main deck. Honestly, this is just kind of, it's always going to be Hand Trap Turbo, 1 card package, gas, generate some advantage, and kind of snowball your opponent out of the game. And honestly, this did finish 9-2, so that's not a terrible turnover whatsoever. I think that might be one of the best records that I have seen to date so far for a Vanquish Soul deck, honestly. But it's quite impressive nonetheless just to see what this deck can actually do. Now, heading on in to third place here, we had Voiceless Voice. To be honest with you, these Voiceless have been extremely figured out. Like, for this one, ooh, you have 2 Saravis with 2 Skull Guardian. But this is also playing the Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph in the main deck. Most of the time, you will see the Pendulum Graph take the place of a Saravis, but you do want to have that level of protection. You're also playing 43 cards in here, which might be a little bit much. We're also playing a There Can Only Be One. To be fair, that's kind of an auto blowout card in some matchups. If you actually do see that, you're going to town. I also see we are playing the best solemn card down there in the whole wide world. Being able just to safely set it after you have, you know, all 3 of the continuous cards up and running. Just makes you feel like an absolute Chad, honestly. But, okay, outside of that, I mean, this finished 8-2, which I don't think is too terribly bad. It does definitely showcase some of the power that this deck has going for it, though. All right, our Ubel Duelist here. Only getting 4th place, though. A little bit sad in that, but, okay, we're still doing 1 of the base form and 1 of the first stage. Terra Incarnate, that's fine. 3 Beckoning Beasts with 2 Opening of the Spirit Gates. We do play 1 of the Super Poly in the main deck for the trap card with 3 regular Super Polys. Outside of that, still doing the Unchained package built into the main. 2 of the Ubel Fusion Target down in the extra deck. Side deck, we are siding Bysteals, which I don't think anybody's really going to complain about that. You need those Bysteals to check any real problems that you think your opponent's going to attempt to turbo through and start pressuring you. Also, this deck finished 7-1-2, which means that 7 wins, 1 loss, and 2 draws. That's a little bit rough, but sometimes Ubel has a very hard time attempting to clear out the game, especially if this build's not playing Libby or anything like that. So whatever field investment you're doing is kind of it, honestly. Next up here is our Snake Eyes deck. And, okay, so we're playing crossouts in the main so we can actually ensure that we can play through the hand traps. That's not all that surprising at all. We're opting for 2 skill drains in the side deck. I don't know how I feel about that. Now, to be fair, it looks like they just straight chose a 2-2-2 lineup here for a majority of the things in the side deck, with the Storm, the Cosmics, the 2 Evenlies, the 2 Barriers, and the 2 copies of the skill drain. So I can understand if that's your mentality you're going for. You'll have plenty of options to kind of sift through, especially when you come down to side decking. Boarding in is going to be a little bit easier. I guess you can board out like crossouts and things depending on which mode you're going for. You also have the nibs built into the main. It's interesting to see nib kind of phasing itself out of the meta. This build actually went 6-2-1. Wow, 2 losses on this. It's actually kind of hilarious to just see how these decks kind of stood up for this meta. All right, we have a Luber in friends. Oh boy. It's triple Super Poly built into the main deck. No fusion duplication. Aw. I always love when we can see fusion duplication shenanigans with this. Also, a quick shout out here to only 42 cards. These branded decks, I am telling you, you spin a roulette and you'll find out the most random number of cards you can stick into a branded list and have it actually work out. This build actually finished 6-1, same as our last challenger here, which means, hey, you know, this deck does have issues. I'm not going to be the first one to tell you that. Also, the fact, you know, we're trucking 2 Saronniers in here, which is fine. Let's see here. We also have double Ogre in the side. That's kind of acceptable. Most of the side deck down here is actually pretty good. I do love the fact that you do have the double or the triple dimensional barrier down there as well to gas through your opponent and absolutely laugh at them. So overall, okay, this is pretty interesting stuff. All right, what else we got back here? Some Flunderies. This duelist actually took to the skies and actually played one of the Heartbeast Featherstorm back in the main deck. That's good. We've seen a lot of give and take with how many Heartbeast Featherstorms do we want to actually have? What is the optimal performance? Is it worth main decking in here? We also had Triple Shifter and 2 Dimensional Fissures built into the main deck here. So you've got pretty much everything that you want to see across the board here to kind of help you take care of a lot of your situations that you want to see. Also, the 2 Swallows Cowrie for the additional searcher. I will tell you that that's definitely going to be worth your time. You want to have as much searchability and as much certain cards to handle as much situations as you can, and being able to toggle through underneath the hand trap again to get the search, definitely worth it. I'm actually glad to see that this duelist actually looks like they made an attempt to actually use some of their extra deck for once. And our last list here is more Senpai. Oh, wow. All right, so this build actually opted, I'm loving this 2 Ogre, 2 Bell, 2 other Ghost Sister we have here. You have the 2 Fenrirs, you are doing the Bysteel. Opted for 41 cards, but I don't really, the 2 crossouts is a little bit weird to me. I see we did opt for the copy of the Blackwinged Assault Dragon in here. Post side deck is kind of interesting. You do see an additional cross-out. You do see the Necro Valley down there. You also do see the Shifter and the Drolls, which is good if need be, but I don't know. This feels not optimized. Maybe it's just me looking at the ratios, but I don't know. It's just kind of how I feel about this. So, what do you guys think about the breakdown for this event? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.